In this tutorial, I will show you how to manage Shopify Metafields. That is, how to create, update, and delete them in your Shopify store. And this is a valid tutorial for all these items, for products, for smart collections, custom collections, customers, draft orders, orders, pages, blog posts, shop. Because all these kinds of items can have metafields, but we will work in this example on products because it's the most typical case. And by the way, this is a tutorial on our website, how to manage Shopify Metafields, and we will basically cover all these chapters that are here, but just in a video form that you can then see exactly how we are doing each of those things. Let's get started. So we have here our Excellify app with which we are going to do all this. And as a starting point, I have prepared here a couple of products that we are going to play with. And so on our store, just to see where we start, basically in the catalog is just the plain products with no other details, just like a title and price. And this one has two variants because we will also do the variant metafields, and I will show you how to show metafields on your product page as well. All right. So if we want to update our metafields, we can do it by basically updating our products. And to do that, we just go to Excellify app to export, choose the format to Excellify Excel. And basically here under the columns, we choose basic columns and metafields and variant metafields, just to see if we have any of those already. And actually in advanced, we can remove anything that's not needed, that you don't want to update or see. In fact, any columns that are not needed. For example, we don't need body HTML, we don't need vendor, type, tags command. Basically, we can remove any of the columns that we don't need, like that. We will just keep those. ID, handle, command, title, row number, top row, indicator, the variant ID, and the metafields, and the variant metafields. Also, if you need to update just specific products, not all of them, you can always apply those filters, and you can filter by all of those fields to specifically target the products that you want to update this time. But we will export all of them because we have just two sample products. I press export and we wait while it's finishing. Alright, so our export has finished and we just download the exported file. And in that file, we can see our chosen columns that we are going to work with. So basically it's the ID, is the product ID, which allows us to identify this product quickly. The handle is the friendly handle. Basically this is the URL for this product. The command tells whether we want to update or delete this product, but we will update this product. The title is the product title, of course. The row number shows which particular row in this file it is. And top row, true, tells that this is a top row, in case we have, like here, we have a product that has actually two variants. So it has the same ID and the same handle, but only the first row has a true. That's if you need to do something only with the first rows for the basic columns. And here we already have our metafield columns, which is the main thing we are going to focus on. So these two columns are the SEO or search engine optimization columns. Let me show you in the Shopify. If we open this one product, here is the search engine listing preview, and if you click edit website SEO, this is the title, this one title tag, and this is the description tag. And these are the only default metafields that exist for all of the products or collections and pages, and basically all the web related data items have these metafields. If this is shown as empty, it means that by default Shopify will always generate the same value as in the title. And if the description shows empty here, it means that Shopify by default will generate the same as the product description from the description. But we can of course change those to whatever we want. So this is Google skis, for example, and this is Google jetpack. And here in this top row, that indicates that, for example, the metafields, they belong to the product level. So each top row will have a metafield value, but the variant metafields will have different columns, and we will get to this in a very short moment. Just we set some sample values here to start with. So for description, we will write, all right, and those are the values. How can we put them, like in case we have some 10,000 products or so, we can update them in bulk for all of the products. But that doesn't end there. So like if you notice, there's a certain structure to this column. The metafield and column tells that this is a metafield column. This title tag tells the key of the metafield, and this in square brackets string tells the type of the metafield, in which case this is a string, basically the text. And there can be 3 types of metafields, like in our documentation here. So there is integer, string, and JSON string, 3 types. So how do we create an additional metafield that we want to put? We just basically copy a new column that starts with the same metafield column, and then we write my field like that. So metafields are basically the custom fields that you can add as many as you want. And in this case, since we have here my field, it will be created in so-called global namespace. And so there is such a thing as namespaces for metafields, and each metafield is being kept in a specific namespace, which is like a folder for those metafields. And I will show you what I mean by that. So to put a metafield in a specific namespace or in a folder, we just write it like this, like specs dot, for example, country, like that. And this then puts this metafield in the specs namespace or a folder, and then dot, and then comes the key or the name of the metafield itself. Basically, if we don't put any namespace for a metafield, then it means it's the same as global dot. It's in a global namespace, so we can write it shorter. All right, so let's create some metafields. For example, jetpack is from Latvia, because we are from Latvia, and skis are from Finland, because Finland is more to the north and there is a winter already. And so these are product metafields. And now at the same time we can add some variant metafields. For example, like this. If we write this name that starts with variant metafield, it means that this particular cell will be assigned to each variant. For example, we can write some additional attributes, like additional features for each of the variants. For example, that would be like speed. Skis, for example, have 50 of speed, something depends on your country, right? There's our either miles per hour or kilometers per hour. And jetpack will have like 100 and 200, for example, some kind of crazy fast 2 variants of the jetpack. And notice that here we are putting just numbers, and what Excellify does, it actually checks the value and it assumes the type of the metafield, because I remember I was showing here each metafield has its own type, and actually ideally always you should put the type here, because otherwise, if for example you will write here some text, then this variant metafield will be created as integer. Like if you don't have the type here, then this will be created as integer, this will be created as string, and this will be created also as integer. That's kind of not very consistent, I would say. So ideally you just put here the type integer in the square brackets, and that will always guarantee, and actually we will validate that this value here that you are trying to import, that it is actually an integer. And if it's not an integer, we will fail this item and will tell you an error that, hey, you wanted to be integer, but we found something else here. And moving further, we can check also the third type of the metafield, which is the JSON string, which is very nice in certain cases when you have some kind of JSON formatted data from your vendor, or some more nested details that you want to save in your Shopify store. For example, here will be some details, and we say that it's a JSON string, and for example, then it means that here we will write some kind of height Notice that the correct JSON starts with opening curly brace, then each attribute goes in quotes, and then comes the value. So this one has the height of 20, and another attribute will be some kind of V, for example, V is high. And we will put the same thing, like similar things here, like here will be 30, this is low, and this is 40, and this is super space. And we'll delete this because we don't need it. So we have some sample metafields here, and let's just save this file as new metafields and go back to Excellify. And this time we will import the file. So we choose this file of new metafields, upload the file, wait for it to analyze. We can see that here it found 2 products and with estimated 4 seconds of import. In the options, we basically don't need to change anything. We just press import and let it do its job. Okay, so we see that there are 2 updated products. And now if we go to our products list, at first let's check the SEO values. So we open the Jetpack, and if we go here at the bottom, you see there is this Google Jetpack, and very nice Jetpack. There are those SEO values from this file. You see Google skis for the second product. Is it skies or skis? It's skies. Okay, but you get the point. Google skies and very fast skies. And the Jetpack you saw already. But what about those metafields? Of course, Shopify admin doesn't show them anywhere. You can't see them in admin. But you might want to show them on your website, and that's what I'm going to show you. So if I refresh here, nothing has changed. Basically only the Google SEO metafields have changed. So we will do a bit of editing of our theme. Basically here we go to online store, themes, actions, edit code, like this. And here are all those templates that Shopify allows us to edit. And here is the product liquid file, which we can edit and add some new additional data to it. And so basically let's just play with it. Let's put in the center of the page, we will write some unordered list of items, which will be a list item of, for example, what we want to show. We want to show the country from specs namespace. So here is a little bit of help in our tutorial. So here we can copy this code, and this is how we insert the value from the metafield in our page. We can write, for example, here is the country, and we take product, metafields, specs, country, and we do the same thing about the variant metafield. But to get the variant metafield value, we need to use it like this. There is a current variant, then metafields, and further on. So we copy this, paste here, and we will call it speed. And we take from the current variant metafields, specs, speed. And this will be different for each of our variants. And the third metafield will be our details, and we will extract from those details, let's say the height attribute, we will extract from them. So we write here details height, and we say again current metafields, metafield, specs, details. And since this is a JSON, we can just dig deeper with a dot. We can say height, and this will actually read it from this object value. So we save it and cross the fingers that this will work. So, and we refresh our product page. We can see that here we have the country value of Latvia, speed 200 and height 40. And then if we change the variant, of course it doesn't change automatically in this theme, but if we refresh the page, then we can see that the speed reads out the 130 of height. So this is basically how you can access the values of the product metafields and the variant metafields. Right, so next step is what if we want to update the values of existing metafields. So again, we can do the export, select the columns, and this time we can also add some variant options here option name and values so that we can see which variants we are actually updating. And I will show you a neat trick how we can target specific metafields. For example, if you have like thousands of metafields in your store and you need to update just some of them, then here in the advanced, next to the metafield and variant metafield column placeholders, you have this pencil, and if you press it, you can select to include only specific metafields, and you can select them by namespace, by key, and by value type. So the namespace, we can choose that it equals to any of, and we can write all the namespaces here that we want to include in our export. So in this case, we can just write specs like this, like we have in our file. Here is the namespace, and then that will include only the metafields from the specs namespace. And for example, for variant metafields, we can do the same, equals to any of specs namespace, and that's all. And export again, and just wait for it to finish. Note that if you are exporting variant metafields, and if you are really using them, only then you need to include them, because when you export variant metafields, it asks from Shopify the metafields of each variant, and that might take much longer time than if you don't include them in the export at all. That's why if you are not using variant metafields, then don't include them in the export. That will make your exports much faster. Okay, so the export is finished, and now we download the file, and let's see what's inside of it. So as we expected, here are all our initial columns, and there are our options. You see that for the skis, there are like the title and default title, and here is the color options. We can change those, of course, as well. And here, notice that we don't have any more SEO metafields here, because we selected only specs namespace. That's why we have only the variants, the variant metafields from this specs namespace. And so basically, if we want to change them, we just change the values as here, as in Excel. Basically, here we can do 1, 2, 3, 4, like change whatever we want to change. And for example, here we put Sweden. At the same time, I will show you how to delete the metafields, and it's as simple as just clearing out the value here. Note that if you would delete the whole column, for example this one, then we will not change anything about this metafield. But if we clear the value but keep the column heading here, then it will delete this metafield for those specific, in this case, for those specific variants. And for example, if we would also clear this one, then it will delete the metafield for this product. So again, if we save this and update metafields, so those should be deleted, and this should be deleted, and those should be changed, and those will remain basically unchanged. So now we go back to Excellify app, and we import to update metafields, and we press import. So again, we see that 2 products were updated. And now if we go to our product and we refresh it, we see that there it is, the new speed and the details height for the jetpack green is empty. So the jetpack green, yes, that's right. There is no value here, so there is nothing here, and it's 234, 234, and the country is Latvia. And if we go to the other product, which is the skis, then we see that country is empty, speed is 123, which is this one, and the height is 20, which is taken from this one. And the same way we can check ourselves. We can, for example, we can like remove these metafield selection things, and we can just export with all the metafields and see what are the metafield values at the moment. And that's always a very good way to check yourself, because if you are in doubt that what are the Metafield values because you don't see them anywhere in the admin, you can just export them with Excellify. And since this is being read directly from the Shopify database, those will be always showing the most recent values. So here are our SEO Metafields, which we didn't change, and here are our changed Metafields. And at the same time, if we will just delete them completely here, all the values, and save it for like as a delete, and then import again, delete, press import. So this should completely delete those two Metafields. Next time when we export the Metafields, those two columns will not show up at all, because none of the products and variants would have any values for those Metafields, so they will not be existing anymore in the Shopify. So this got updated. Now we do the export just to make sure that all those got deleted as we expected. So download the exported file and open the file, and yes, you see there are only those SEO Metafields and only just the speed Metafield, because in this previous file we cleared out those, so they don't exist anymore in Shopify store. Right, so that's basically how you update your Metafields in your Shopify store using Excellify app. And if you have any questions or issues, definitely go to our website, which is excellify.io, and there you will find full documentation of all the things that you can import and export, including the Metafields documentation here. Also very many tutorials about different topics, including here you can filter by Metafields, and here are different other tutorials that shows what you can do with Metafields in Excellify. And definitely, if you don't find something on our website, please go here to contact us page and reach us through any of those 3 channels, and we will be there to answer all your questions, basically be there for you. See you.